So welcome to the QMS webinar on quality management systems. It's our 7th webinar, our 3rd in our 2nd series. So lovely to see people joining us. Please put in the chat where you're from. We're going to make a start really quickly because we've got lots of speakers, lots of content, and it will take us a while to get through some of that. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and pop that on slide share as you're coming in. So please keep popping into the chat where you're from and what you do if you want to share that with us. So welcome. So welcome to our strangely titled webinar called Putting an Octopus into a String Bag. So today we're going to be looking at how do we do that? How do we get all these different organizations, systems, whatever, to try and coordinate and align together in quality improvement? So that's what we're going to be discussing today. I hope you're on the right webinar. And to introduce ourselves, so my name's Emma Adams. I work as an independent improvement consultant, but work with many trusts across the country and countries. And I've been hosting these webinars over the last couple of years. So that's me. I'm going to ask my co-host Joy to say hello. Hi, Joy.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all again.
So Joy is Chief. What's your title, Joy? You can say it better than me.
It's Chief of Regulatory Compliance and Improvement at the North West Ambulance Service. So I do CQC and I do QI. So nice to see you all.
Now you can tell why I didn't introduce her at that point. So our other speakers, we're delighted that Penny Pereira is joining us. Penny, would you like to say hello? Hello. And then John Dean, would you like to say hello as well so we can see you?
Yeah, hello. Good to see everybody on the call. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, John. Ailsa, would you like to say hello as well?
Yes, hi everyone. Great to see you this afternoon.
Thank you, Ailsa. And last but definitely not least, Rob, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Thank you for the introduction and hello everybody. Very much looking forward to contributing to this session. Thank you.
Great. So as you'll see from the slide, all our presenters are coming from a wide range of backgrounds, and I'm hoping they say a little bit more about themselves when it's their turn to speak. But thank you for joining us. So today, the way we're running the session, we're recording, so don't worry if tech fails or anything like that. But if you don't mind, stay on mute. Otherwise, it's difficult for our presenters. Please use the chat. It's great to see quite a lot of you have introduced yourselves and where you're from. But give us questions and comments in that chat and we'll pick that up as we go. We'll open for questions right at the end of the presentations more formally. So do raise your hand if you want to speak or put something in the chat if you want to pose a question. That's fine. Don't forget to unmute, which is the one that we generally forget to do. And the other thing is we've been running quite a few conversations on this via Twitter. So there are Twitter handles if you want to use them, and really like to encourage you to do that. If you want during the webinar or later, because we're all on Twitter and we'd like to pick up your comments. So just to remind you, this webinar has been hosted by the Q community. If you're not a member, Q is a group of thousands of improvers now across UK and Ireland. And we work together to connect ideas and thoughts together and share our different ways of approaching improvement, of which these webinars are part of that. So if you're interested in Q, then do have a look, see if you can join, or if not, find a Q member near you. So this is how we're going to be running the webinar. We've just said hello, and I'll be handing over to Penny, who'll be talking about the Health Foundation's support to improvement leaders, provider organisations and systems around quality management systems. Then I'll be handing over to Rob, and Rob will talk to us about the very hot off the press NHS England delivery and continuous improvement review, which I'm sure quite a lot of you are interested in. We're going to have quite a short breakout, but it is a chance to say hello to people who are on the call, which is quite helpful. But if you feel like you don't want to do that, please drop out for 15 minutes and then come back so that we don't have any empty rooms. And then we'll be handing over to John Dean and Ailsa Brotherton, We were delighted that they're doing a lot of work in their local ICB area around bringing system improvement together and using engineering better care approach as their sort of model to do that. So they'll tell you a lot more about that when it gets to them. And then Joy will host a short Q&A with our speakers. So if you've got some burning questions, then make sure you've got that written down ready to pop in the chat or to raise your hand when we get to that point. And then we'll do a quick poll and close. So just to tell you why we're here. So quite some time ago, Joy and I got our heads together and talked about how is it that despite all this best effort on quality improvement, we're finding that some of our results are not sustained and some of that effort's not really getting the impact on the wider system. And we started to talk about quality management systems. So we've done a first webinar series on each element of the Duran trilogy, which explains how quality management comes together. So please have a look at those. But this time around, we're going to deeper dive into each element. And today is really looking at the quality improvement part, particularly about how do we do that across organizations we don't necessarily manage and control. So that's where we are in the series. Just to remind you, we're now on series 2. All of the webinars have been recorded and they're all available via the Q website on YouTube. So please take time to have a look at them if you want. We've had some fantastic speakers, and this series we've been really lucky to focus on the sort of quality planning side of things. How do we do this in a human-centered, person-centered way using learning health systems? The last time we met, we really talked about how we can coach in daily continuous improvement, and we really looked at Toyota Kata and also different approaches to quality improvement coaching. And then today we're really delighted to have the speakers we've got to really think about what's this improvement thing we're trying to do across systems and how can we do it. So that's our series. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand us over to Penny, who's ready to talk through how the Health Foundation is supporting improvement leaders. So Penny, over to you.
Very much, Emma. It's fabulous to be here. I guess it feels like this is the right conversation to be having. This conversation, particularly around how do you develop quality management systems, improvement particularly across systems, not just individual organisations. From where we're sitting at the Health Foundation, this is where the agenda is going to be for the coming years, as well as, of course, then all the more detailed work within individual organisations. So I guess it reflects a trajectory of people reaching for bigger and wider kind of approaches to improvement that I guess we've been noticing from the community. So, you know, reaching for quality management systems rather than project-based quality improvement for a lot of good reasons. So, you know, you need to create that leadership and organisational context and integrate improvement with other things in order to achieve scale and sustainability, as kind of Emma said at the start. And then in parallel, also reaching to work across whole systems for really good reasons, because we can only achieve like many of our goals for populations by taking a kind of cross-pathway systemic approach. And because when you start to get that kind of scale, it opens up new opportunities for sharing capability and learning. So, you know, it's really good to have Rob here and talking about NHS impact, because it feels like on a policy level, these ideas that we've been talking about on this series are really coming through centrally in this work. I think the language of quality management systems may end up being dropped from the final communications that come out in terms of the components. But certainly those ideas feel like they run through the proposals that have come out from NHS England. Indeed, this idea of embedding improvement into the management system, it reflects some of the conversations that I've picked up from this group in terms of dropping the quality, so that actually we think about the management system holistically, rather than sometimes when people hear quality, they think about that in relation to only one part of what an organisation does. So yeah, really looking forward to hearing more from Rob. I guess I was reflecting coming into this that there's a really sound rationale for this being the stuff that we're working on. But I guess being here, we find ourselves beyond the established evidence base, not very many examples in practice or guidance in the literature about how to go about doing improvement and quality management systems across you know, across kind of larger geographies. I suppose what we do know is that the more partners that are involved, the larger the system, often the more complex change can be. So when we are talking about quality management systems, you know, across larger systems, we don't yet really know what that looks like or how to make progress. We need to be really fascinated if, you know, when we get into conversation, you have a different view on that. I guess it's precisely at those times it's particularly valuable to have these spaces to think these through together and exchange kind of emerging practice. Anyway, what is the Health Foundation going to be doing to support like thinking and practice in this space? We're really keen to make the most of our ability to think about that kind of development of improvement over the long term. And I guess through Q, we're all about connecting people at all levels and different parts of the system. In summary, some of the things we've got planned. So we're thinking about whether we can distill what's been like really valuable in this series and potentially commission further activities. We'll carry on being led by what you tell us you need. So, you know, either in the chat or follow up afterwards, like drop us a line if there's things in this area that you'd like us to be making space for. We'll also be kind of influencing, supporting NHS impact. We've been helping kind of shape the recommendations on embedding improvement in systems and processes, for example. And now we'll be thinking about how we can support implementation. If you haven't seen it yet, please check out the kind of long read that we produced around how to approach the implementation of NHS impact, because I think there's some parallels with some of the things that we might get into today. Most immediately, we're doing a roundtable with NHS Confed on the 24th of May. That's going to be looking at the kind of principles to guide how people might go about aligning the organisations across the system to when thinking about having a shared kind of improvement approach rather than, you know, many different methodologies. There are still a few places if you'd like to join that roundtable or share work that you're doing in that space. So, you know, again, please do drop me a line in the chat or follow up afterwards if you'd like to join that. If we can't make space on the roundtable, we'll certainly love to feed in your experience. And then we're also thinking about actually how could we support, capture the stories and examples in practice of quality management systems at system level. So, for example, we're funding the North East North Cumbria Learning and Improvement System and helping to evaluate and share what they're doing. We've also been defining and we're thinking about how we can test a framework for enabling learning and improvement across large systems, thinking about work that we might publish in that area. I can share more about that, but we'll be really keen to draw on what we learn kind of with you. And we're shortly to be announcing kind of partnerships with NHS providers and NHS Confed supporting learning and improvement across provider collaboratives and integrated care systems, respectively. So there'll be more on that to follow soon. I'm really happy to answer any kind of immediate questions if we have a few minutes now, or perhaps easier to follow up in the chat, or we can come back to it later in the panel discussion. But yeah, always really happy to hear from you what you think would be most useful from you. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Penny. So if you have any burning questions, I'd suggest perhaps putting it in the chat right now, and then we can pick it up, can't we, Joy, in a bit in our panel. But thank you ever so much, Penny. There's obviously a lot going on, and the Health Foundation are in the thick of it. So if you've got some thoughts about how that takes place, how you can get involved, then please get in touch. But also please note that round table that's happening on the 24th of May and the open invite to that. So thank you very much, Penny. So I'm going to pass this over to Rob now. Rob, are you ready to go? Are you? Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I will share my screen and then hopefully pass over control to you. So this is where the technology has to work its wonders. So just find you, Rob. And no, I haven't got you. So I tell you what, why don't you let me know when you need moving onwards?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. I can see that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Also for not putting my photo on this one. I've still got lockdown hair on the picture, which was used at the beginning of the presentation. So it's nice not to see that again. Welcome everybody, and thank you ever so much for the team for inviting myself along to represent the work that NHS England is doing in this space. As Penny says, a lot of the themes that have been covered in these webinars are linking into policy and action now, which is gratifying to see. I've just remembered I was asked to do a brief introduction and talk a little bit about myself as well. So my name is Rob. I work centrally in the NHS England team, where I've been for around 10 years now, and latterly I've been heavily involved, but probably over the last year on and off, in development of this this piece of work. It's personally very, very interesting and something I'm incredibly enthusiastic about. And also it's an interesting counterpoint. Before I worked in the NHS, I worked in different industries and civil service and did various other things. But I think my own personal reflection is it's slightly more difficult to get things done in a health system than it is, for example, in banking or retail and various other industries. So with that in mind, this piece of work I think is key. It's really interesting, and it is also something that's got some traction right at the top of the office at NHS England. So as part of the introduction, it was covered that this is hot off the press, and that's genuinely so. It's something that was only taken the wraps off on the 17th, so no more than 10 days ago. Amanda stood up at her twice yearly leadership event in front of all the chief execs up and down the country from both providers and ICBs, and spent a little bit of time talking about what you see on screen now, which is an exciting new logo or identity. You can see the cogs there. Everybody always loves a mnemonic or a word that splits out into other words. So NHS Impact, which stands for or represents improving patient care together. So this was a really big moment for improvement across the system and improvement nationally. That Amanda used, what's only a single meeting twice a year to take the wraps off this work and talk a little bit more about where it came from and what it means across the system. So a genuine pleasure to be along today to share where we're at on this. I would caveat that with explaining that this is the sort of starting point of the journey rather than all the answers being in place so far. But what I wanted to share today is how this came about, what it contains, and also draw that link with management systems or quality management systems too. So Emma, if you could move us on to the next slide, that would be fab. Thank you. So this started with an exercise called the Delivery and Continuous Improvement Review. This is a part of work which kicked off round about a year ago. It was led from within NHS England by Anne Eden, who's our regional director for the South East region. And it would be remiss of me not to point out how many people were involved and how broad a stakeholder activity it was to arrive at these conclusions. So well over 1,000 people contributed, including patients, clinicians, improvement specialists, people from partner organisations, and so on. And also a big shout out to Q and the Q community. I know there was some very structured efforts to get feedback from Q members, and that was all in the mix in and among that 1,000+ people. So a really gratifying stakeholder experience to be involved in that genuinely touched upon all areas of the system, including social care and so on. So the recommendations of the review have now been published. They're on NHS England's website, and also, as Penny says, we've got some really good feedback from partner organisations, including the long read, which Penny mentioned earlier on. And also there is a blog available on the NHS providers website from Julian, also talking about this work and how it evolves into NHS Impact. So the results of the review are available, and thank you, Penny, for dropping the links into the chat for the long read. So if we could move on, please, Emma. Sorry, I know you did say you'd given me control of these, but I've struggled to talk and do things do things on screen at the same time. So
Fortunately, I couldn't give you control, Rob, so just
Oh,
keep
okay.
telling me what to do.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. There's only about 4 slides, I think, so it should be fairly straightforward. So the delivery and continuous improvement review, our board recently endorsed this work, the full NHS England board, which again gives you a measure of where improvement is being discussed organisationally at the moment, rather than it being a sleepy backwater or something that's tertiary to the business. This was a full board discussion and full board agreement to these 3 points. The first of which is launch a single shared NHS improvement approach, and I'll come on to what this means in a moment. The second is to co-design and establish a leadership for improvement programme, and again I've got a little bit more detail on that. And the third is establishment of an improvement board. Now, this is not a case of, oh no, another board, just what we need. It's the opportunity for senior stakeholders, senior people in the governance to come together and agree exactly what improvement should be focused on from an NHS England perspective and where it's going to have most impact. So next slide, please. Super. And then this is the 5 pillars. We're talking here about the components that form that DNA of all evidence-based improvement methods. So what we're not doing is recommending or mandating a particular improvement approach nationally. What we are saying is that the best improvement approaches all share some common strands, and those common strands are the 5 things, and this went through an awful lot of socialization, awful lot of stakeholder activity to get here. But the 5 strands which were arrived at as part of this exercise were: number 1, building a shared purpose and vision; number 2, investing in people and culture; number 3, developing leadership behaviours; number 4, improvement capability and capacity; and number 5, embedding improvement into management systems and processes. Now, mindful of our octopus in the bag and the fact that this is one of a series of webinar on quality management systems, I hope that it is welcome that the 5th point on the screen there is reflected in this work, and as Penny said, you know, getting hard baked into policy nationally. And the sentence at the bottom of the screen is an important one as well. What we've recommended, I say we, a lot of people have been involved in this work, but what the recommendation that we've got there is that when those 5 components are consistently used, the organisations create the right conditions for continuous improvement and high performance, and that's the crux of it, really. And it's encouraging, convening, bringing together, landing, and implementing something that enables organisations to land these 5 strands of DNA. And obviously, when you look at those on the page, some of those are quite difficult. Culture change, for example, developing leadership behaviours is not a overnight job. Others are things that practical steps can yield, you know, very, very good short and medium term results, such as capability, capacity, and the work around management systems. So if you can move us on, Emma. Thank you. So the National Improvement Board, just to explain a little bit more around this is going to be chaired by Vin, who is our Medical Director for Secondary Care Transformation and is my boss's boss, ultimately. And what we want to do is bring in some expert voices and co-chairs from the service, bringing in that continuous improvement and clinical expertise to help us. And we're keen to get this set up as quickly as possible in shadow form, and then it will bring together experienced leaders and help us guide the development of NHS Impact. And when we talk about the priorities that we're keen that improvement focuses on nationally and as part of the system, obviously we've got 3 recovery plans that are live at the moment in UEC, elective and GP access. So it's discussing, agreeing how, when, and what the improvement activity nationally will be focused on to support the priorities of the organisation and the priorities of the system. So next slide, please. And the Leadership for Improvement programme. This I just wanted to dwell on this again because this is pretty exciting stuff. So there's some co-design going on at the moment around leadership for improvement. There's a lot of work nationally with our workforce transformation leads, etc., and a lot of socialisation with people from across the system. So the leadership session that I mentioned with Amanda last week, that involved breakout sessions to enable us to gather feedback from that group, 200 plus chief execs, around what needed to be true to make this happen and what we need to think about when we're implementing these recommendations. So co-development, making sure we've got the right frameworks, etc. We've understood what the ask is, we're tight around service specs and so on. Again, with the intention, it's always the last sentence on these slides is the important bit. Supporting that scale and spread of improvement skills and making sure that improvement-led delivery grows roots at system provider and every other level of the organisation. And the final slide, and then we'll take this down now. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that fifth bit of DNA around management systems. We've got a new NHS Impact web space. This is available and was available as Amanda was talking last week. So what we've tried to do there is draw together useful content from existing web areas and also include some new content, particularly from recent learning around things like the Winter Collaborative that's been happening across the system. So please do have a look on there. That'll grow. We'll get more stuff on there, particularly as we land things like the Leadership for Improvement programme and more of the material I've been talking about today. So final few words then, if you want to take down the slides, Emma, thank you. Just about what we mean by the management system. So we can probably split this down further into three parts. I mean, there's a quality planning bit around turning vision into strategies, making sure we've got measurement frameworks and governance in place. There's the quality control element around tracking performance over time, operational service delivery and quality of that service, the people-related factors and the sort of productivity and safety elements. And then the ultimate bit is around quality improvement. So focusing improvement activity around maintaining performance and continually improving everything that the organisation does. And also, if you check into the DCI review, you look at Penny's long read, etc. There's some good examples which won't be unfamiliar, I'm sure, to this audience around where good quality improvement, good management systems, etc., have led to excellent results in patient care and how that is delivered. So I will shut up there. I don't think I've overrun my slot, but apologies if I have. And thank you ever so much for listening, and looking forward to rejoining for the panel discussion a little bit later on. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much, Rob. Just a couple of things. You're welcome to put the resources of our webinars onto your website, because if you've been a regular visitor, you'll know that our webinars have gone way past management systems, and we've been talking about leadership, culture, vision, strategy, all those kind of things. So it's really great to see that. And also to let people on the call know that it's not just NHS England that are looking at this. We were really lucky to get some input from Healthcare Improvement Scotland to one of our webinars, again from Improvement Comrie as well. And we know that Ireland's Health Executive and Health and Safety Executive have also been looking in this area. So there's loads of stuff going on, which this is part of it. So thank you so much. So on that note, what we're going to do is just for 15 minutes, put you into breakout rooms, because there's lots to think about, lots to talk about. And it would just be really great for you to say hello to other people and share what's your first kind of thoughts around this. Come back. I think we're slowly getting the rooms back. Hope you've managed to have a good chat with people who are in your breakout room. Oh, it's lovely to see so many coming back. That's always a panic of mine. It's like being at a party that everyone disappears at the breakout session. So really lovely to see you back. Oh, I've got an echo somewhere. Are we okay? Right, thank you very much for coming back. I'm hoping that you've generated some thoughts, perhaps some questions for us as we go on. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to John and Elsa, and I'll share my screen again with them. I'll just put that on. And then also, Elsa, am I starting with you?
Yes, please, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem at all. Let me just pass over slide control to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Emma. So good afternoon, everyone. I was just reflecting coming into this conversation about really the start of my Generation Q journey. We were just talking about that when Penny was sharing a reflection. And actually, I started Gen Q about a decade ago, really wanting to, oh, I think the slides are moving automatically, Emma.
Sorry.
So
Where are we?
If you could just go back to the start.
We nearly there? Yeah.
Yep, that one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, and at the start of my Generation Q journey, I wanted to learn about how to deliver and design system-wide improvement. And I've got to say, a decade on, I am still learning much more than I even thought there was to learn. So I think one of the things we really need to think about is how we stay in learning mode as we do this work and we really work together to deliver improvement across our system. So John and I are just going to share with you the journey we're on in Lancs and South Cumbria across our ICS. It is early, but really timely, I think, based on what we've heard today from the launch of NHS Impact. And really what I wanted to do, this is the last in the series of the QMS, so we won't major too much on that, and we are going to talk to you about how we are really working together to do improvement across our system. But I just wanted to start by sharing with you what our local patch is. So we're Lancs and South Cumbria ICS, you can see here, we're in the northwest of England. And we've got an ageing population and our over 75s will double by 2035. So we're really focused on actually how will we use improvement to meet the needs of our local population. We're a very diverse population and unfortunately we're a highly deprived population. So we know that we've got a lot of work to do to reduce our health inequalities and really focus on prevention. So we're trying to think and work really differently through improvement. And I'm not going to talk about this because we've heard about it, but I do just want to echo what has already been said. This is such an important moment for us in improvement because we've got the opportunity to really mainstream improvement and take a big step forward. And the Q community really does have a massive role to play in how we implement NHS Impact. So many of you will have joined these previous webinars, but if you haven't, if this is your first one, this is just what we're talking about in terms of the core concepts of quality management. And what we've really tried to do across Lancs and South Cumbria is really standardise our approach. So we've got now a standard approach to planning. Many thanks to Kate, who is the QI lead in East Lancs. Kate's been leading with her strategy leads to really make sure that we've got a really standardised approach, and then we're obviously looking at how we can really build our quality improvement approach together, and John's going to talk you through how we're doing that because we've recognised that challenge of how do you do this at system level when individual organisations have got their own approach. But importantly too, we've also been thinking very carefully about how do we do quality control and how do we really do quality assurance so that what we've got across our entire ICS is a connected quality management system that is absolutely a way of working rather than a tick box framework. So what we've been really doing, and we wanted to share with you how we started our journey, because some of you may be more advanced than us, and it'd be great to hear from you in the panel discussion if you are. But if you haven't yet started to work together across your providers, then we started with conversations with our provider collaborative board. So this work started before our new ICB executive were in place. But from the outset, we had a commitment to do this together once across our ICS, and we're now working with colleagues across the entire ICS. And what we really wanted to do was to start by sharing where we are. And John's going to talk you through some of our improvement approaches and how we did that. But what we've really wanted to do is to create the space to really be able to design and deliver improvement across a complex adaptive system. And I think one of the things we've understood is this isn't something that can be a quick fix that we'll do in a few weeks or even a few months. So we have committed as a system to really take our time to understand the work we need to do. Of course, we want to see some improvement and some deliverables, and we're working on that. But we absolutely have committed to making this a long-term journey. And I think it's probably important to just reference the fact that we are really fortunate in Lancashire and South Cumbria, because we do have a significant amount of improvement expertise across our organisations. And I think we're probably quite unusual in that 3 of our QI leads are board members. So we have been able to have those conversations. But if you're not in that position and your organisation doesn't have a QI director at board level, then I would advise you all to have the conversations with your executive who leads on QI, because what we've learned is actually being able to make those connections and find the time and space to have the conversations is actually what's allowed us to really deliver and come together to have a shared commitment in the way that we have been talking about. So I'm going to hand over to John now, who's going to talk you through and give you a little bit of background about the improvement we've got in our organisations, some of the similarities and some of the differences. And then John's going to talk you through the work we've been doing together, which we think is really exciting as we use the Engineering Better Care framework to really come together across our system to really understand how we can lead and facilitate improvement at a whole system level. So if you could pass the slides to John, Emma, that would be great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Elsa. And I reiterate exactly what Elsa said about how we've come together. So I'm going to give you, for those who don't know me, I'm John Dean. I'm a physician and I'm Deputy Medical Director in East Lancashire Hospitals. I was a Health Foundation Fellow and sabbatical to the IHI in 2005-06. So I've been in this game for a long time, and I'm also Clinical Vice President at the Royal College of Physicians. I'm going to tell you about East Lancashire Hospitals, where I work for part of my time. And our improvement journey has been a very long one, actually, but I'm going to tell you about time since 2014, when we were actually in special measures and we started to develop an improvement approach, largely based on the IHI model for improvement. And we also ran a number of internal breakthrough series collaboratives. And that developed relatively well. But in 2018, we joined the NHS Vital Signs Programme, which many of you will know was a lean-based improvement practice approach, but also taught very much about management systems and how you embed improvement into your management systems. What we then did was we brought all the various teams together that were working on different elements of improvement into our improvement practice office, and took a few steps up to say, what are the core and common things around the different approaches to improvement that we can put together? We have developed our improvement priorities at a board level that you can see across the top, and these are our improvement programs. And also we've got other key elements of the management system in terms of building capacity and also the culture change. And we have this 6-step model that you can see illustrated here, which is our local approach to improvement. We call it Safe, Personal, Effective Plus, or SPE Plus. Trying to move the slide on. There we go. So this is Lancashire Teaching Hospital, where Elsa and colleagues work. So in around 2018-19, they joined the Flow Coaching community, and then shortly after that developed their own Flow Coaching Academy, which not only works within Lancashire Teaching, but works across the local place, but also wider. So, for example, within one of the Flow Coaching academies is work on some neurological conditions, and teams from across the counties are working together to improve patient pathways. And following that, they wanted to move from the cross-system, local system level down to a microsystem, and now have their microsystem coaching academy as well, with key improvement priorities that teams work together on a daily and a weekly basis, as well as ward-based coaching, which we'll show you a little bit of later. We go back one, I think, yeah. So in Blackpool, one of the other main providers, again, a long improvement journey. Another provider that's had really challenging operational issues and has a challenging health in their local population. As you can see, a number of approaches on this slide, but particularly their Clinical Quality Academy, where teams are brought together to be coached in improvement around particular projects. And we've now agreed across Lancashire and South Cumbria that any of our teams from any of the providers, be they secondary care or primary or community care, can actually join, so that Quality Academy is becoming the team-based improvement development approach across Lancashire and South Cumbria. This is Morecambe Bay. Again, you will see similarities here based on the model for improvement. But if you look at their how they've segmented that in their journey from starting to handover and sustain, this is quite similar to what we've described in East Lancashire as well. So you'll see a lot of similarities, but distinct differences in the providers' approaches. In Lancashire and South Cumbria, which is our mental health and large community provider, they've had a long history of working with lean approaches and now also have been running a number of breakthrough series collaboratives and run some national awards for that, particularly around the restraint programme. They've also developed clinical fellowships in improvement with Lancaster University, and so are developing people in that way. So we wanted to come together, as Ailsa said, we did this through the provider collaborative initially, but I think it's important to say that each of the major providers has worked with primary, community, social care and the voluntary sector in their local place on improvement programmes. This isn't just the hospitals coming together, and indeed some of us are integrated providers as well as hospital providers. The QI leads came together and said, how are we going to take this up a level and work at a system level on a system priority? And we started to explore the Engineering Better Care approach, which some of you may be aware of. But I'll give you a little bit of background to Engineering Better Care. So the Royal Academy of Engineers came together with the Royal College of Physicians, the Academy of Medical Sciences, Royal College of Anaesthetists, and asked the question, how could a systems engineering approach be applied to improving healthcare? And throughout a year, we started to develop and co-design an approach based on systems engineering approach, which has become Engineering Better Care. This was led by the Cambridge Engineering Design Centre, who've taken it on very much further and now have an improvement toolkit, which we're continuing to iterate to develop the approach to Engineering Better Care. So we decided to explore working at a system level on a system priority using this Engineering Better Care approach. And what I'm showing on this slide is some of the elements that are within that toolkit, particularly draw your attention to the questions that follow this spiral of improvement. And what's important there with the questions is it very much becomes a coaching approach. So as we started to look at this and look at our individual approaches to improvement, how can we coalesce based on those different approaches to improvement and the Engineering Better Care? And on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see how we've assimilated this into what is now our generic improvement approach at the Lancashire and South Cumbria level when we're working on system level improvement. So what should we work on? So working with the provider collaborative, working with the integrated care board, we looked at data around where were our biggest population challenges, and Ailsa has already touched on some of those. And so we agreed that we would work on frailty and people living with frailty and how their lives could be supported and improved in a better way. It's important to note that each of the places had been working on this area to a degree before, so it wasn't new. But what we were doing was bringing a different approach to this and working on it together. So we've had a series. We are in the journey of that improvement approach. We've come together so far for a number of sessions, and I'm going to show you some videos from that were captured after those sessions, and then tell you where we're up to at that point. So hopefully I will be able to.
So we're here today to work with teams across Lancashire and South Cumbria to help them think about how we can design systems of care to deliver better outcomes for local people.
We've got a great opportunity to work with our colleagues from Cambridge University and our partners right across our ICS system to really design our system better for our local populations.
So normally commonly when we try and improve care, what we look at is the individual components of care and how we make those components as good as they can be or delivered as effectively as they can be. But often what stops them from being delivered effectively is what else is happening around that, what we might call what is happening across the wider system of care or system within which that care is being delivered. So what we're trying to help people think through and design are better systems of care that enable those processes to be delivered more effectively.
I've spent many years looking at healthcare and thinking about how can design thinking help people to design healthcare systems better.
I'm here because I have a passion for trying to translate how engineers think into the world of healthcare improvement. And we're here also because there's a real appetite in Lancashire and South Cumbria for taking that language of improvement that step further and trying to really understand what a systems approach might look like. So it comes back, why are we here? Well, we're bringing engineering together with improvement and seeing what comes out of that rich mix.
It's important that we work with experts from Cambridge University because they're pioneered the way of system thinking and they're really connecting the way we take systems thinking approach, an approach to improving healthcare within systems and applying that to the current context in which we're working in now.
So what we know is that there are pockets of excellent practice happening across Lancashire, South Cumbria. And if you talk to patients and their families, there'll be lots of experiences of great care that helps them if that's their health need. But we also know that that's not consistent and that you talk to the patient next to them and their family or in another part of Lancashire and South Cumbria, and that won't be their experience of care. So there's a lot we can learn together. But also, if you look across Lancashire and South Cumbria, we are part of a wider system, be that transport links, be it information systems we use, be it the way that we think as patients, families, clinicians in our local communities. So we can learn from and with each other. And from that, we believe we're going to get much more effective, much more reliable systems of care for local people.
We know that we have some fabulous frailty services across Lancashire and South Cumbria. These services are not consistent in every area, and these services are under great strain because we have an aging population. So this is a really exciting opportunity to look at how we deliver and where we deliver our frailty services. Our objective has to be to keep our population safe and in their own homes or their own settings for as long as possible. So please get involved in this frailty transformation programme. It is exciting and it will have direct and appreciable benefits to our community and the patients that we serve. Thank you.
So that was introducing the work that we're doing together. I'm going to try and show you another video now as well. So this was after our first workshop.
So what we've done over the last couple of days is really a continuation of an evaluation process that we've embarked upon over the last few years. where we're trying to look at the patient and the resident journey, and we're trying to look at how we're delivering care for our frail population, frail patients who may or may not have medical or mental health problems, but who generally have needs which all of our organisations are there to cater for and to deliver. We've been able to make links across organisations and evaluate both critically and in a supportive manner what we're offering, and also be reflective in terms of trying to offer new ways of thinking and how we can push our boundaries and redesign our services.
Initially looked at our issues and our problems in our area, have looked at some of the data that came from previous sessions, and been given the tools from the Engineering Better Care to look at how in our place-based we may develop some of the issues, problems we have, and find some solutions.
So we've been looking at the system approach to frailty, care planning, and what can change, what can make it easier, what can make it more efficient, and who do we need to do that?
I had the pleasure to attend the engineering course here, where we are trying to depict how to plan, generate, and improve change in the health service, in particular in our community in Blackpool, but to a wider degree as well in Lancashire and South Cumbria. We try to learn from each other with different ideas that we're coming up with.
Impressed with the amount of progress that they've made and the nice summaries that they put together on the first yesterday morning. And I was really interested to see how they engage with the different parts of the improvement process.
I'm really excited because I think it's the first time that we've ever really tried across Lancashire and South Cumbria, or potentially even anywhere in the country, to really have a think about how can we build a system for improvement where we can bring teams together to really understand the problem and to work collectively together using the best of QI methodology to sort of really make a difference.
Can we go back to the slides, Emma?
Yeah, if you can stop sharing, John, I can share my screen again. Great, thank you.
Have I got control?
You have now.
Thank you. Oh, something else is playing. Let me stop that.
Well, I had my first Sunday lunch on Sunday.
I don't know how that's happening. Hold on. I think I need to turn another thing off, don't I? Perhaps we can just go back to you, Emma, for a second. Can you
Yeah,
take
no
that?
problem. Why don't you mute yourself for a
I'll
second,
mute
John?
myself for a second.
Yeah. Just to say, we'll put the link to the Engineering Better Care Toolkit into the chat in a minute. But we also had a Kew visit to Cambridge University a while ago, which is probably still on the Kew website if you want to find out a little bit more of that. So hopefully when John's ready, we can go back.
I think I'm not having adverts playing at me now. So
over to you again then.
Yeah, that's great. So what's happened now with the frailty work is that we feel we understand a lot more from what you've seen on that slide. All partners, so you've seen people from voluntary sector, from the ambulance service, from hospitals, from primary care, brought together. But each of the places is taking a lead on a different element that we feel needs design. So how do we properly design certain elements of identifying people with frailty and their assessment of good care planning for these patients, about how we react when someone has an increased need, and what is that gold standard approach. So each area is taking a lead and then sharing that with others, and that's where we're at in the programme at the moment. So just coming back to the concept of the quality management system, what we're trying to do across Lancashire and South Cumbria is ensure that we're using these principles at a system level, as Ailsa and I have described, at an organisational and place level, but also at a team level. And what you can see on this slide is some elements where we're doing that. So at the top of the slide, you can see from East Lancashire Hospitals, our executive leadership wall, where the improvement priorities that are planned and agreed are demonstrated. And every Tuesday morning, executives are taken through, and each has a lead on a number of these areas. So we're looking at control, we're looking at the improvement that might be needed and how that's progressing. Here you can see two examples at the bottom left-hand side of the slide where ward-based teams are doing daily coaching and looking at their quality control and the opportunities for improvement. But at least two of the organisations have been using a CATA approach for improvement, and we're spreading that between the different organisations. You can see the safety dashboard used at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals, and each of the hospitals has a version of this. And again, we're sharing how we can look at this in different ways. And then in terms of assurance, each organisation has its own ward and team-based accreditation system, starting with ward-based care, but looking at other teams as well. And you can see the Blackpool approach and the East Lancs approach here. But again, we're working together across the providers to develop a unified system of ward and unit accreditation for quality. So how have we done this? How have we got as far as we've got? I think it's about leadership. A number of our senior leaders have worked in a number of organisations across the local patch. We've got very strong quality leadership as well. And there's no doubt that at a place, at a system and at an organisational level, we have connected leadership. But fundamentally, it's about relationships. We've built strong and trusting relationships from a time in the past when we were perhaps less connected and perhaps competing a little bit, to a very collaborative approach, as I hope we've demonstrated today. So I'm going to stop there, Emma, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions.
Thanks very much, John. That's really impressive to see all those different methods coming together and people starting to talk. So I'm going to hand you over to Joy now. So Joy is open to questions. So please use the chat if you want to raise any questions with her.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So wasn't that fabulous? I was just sitting watching that, John and Elsa go in. Just think of that journey. I've worked in different bits of this patch for quite a long while now, and I can see little seeds of where they were and where they've got to now. And I just feel how amazing if you live in the Northwest. Seriously, how amazing. So well, I was wondering, everybody, if you've got questions in the chat, please put them in there. They're for Penny, they're for John, they're for Elsa, they're about NHS Impact. Any questions that you've got, please put them in there. And I've got a couple to start us off if people are being shy. So firstly, I wondered if we'd go in really, if we start with John and Elsa first. So I thought, listening to what you've just said there, 10 years plus, really, those improvement journeys. And across the country, and we've got other, we've got England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and Ireland on this call too. Everywhere has been on various shades of an improvement journey, haven't they, since the 2000s with To Err Is Human. But given where we are now, what advice would you have for others who might be at different stages of their journey, might need to reinvigorate, might still be competing and not collaborating? What advice would you give them to maybe start that reset? What did you learn through your process?
Shall I start, Elsa?
You want to start, John?
Yeah. So I've been working in the patch for about 11 years now, and I've seen a lot of changes in that time. We've clearly come a long way, but it's not been a linear path by any means. We've had ups and downs through that time, and I think what we've had is a degree of consistent leadership that knows this is the direction that we need to be going in, but not quite sure how to get there. And that's classical systems improvement, isn't it? Because you've got an eye on the future, but you're adapting dependent on what's happening around you. So you can see in East Lancs, we've been through a series of approaches and a series of really big challenges, not only when we've had services under pressure and real challenging times, but also obviously restructuring of the NHS hasn't helped. We've built relationships and had to rebuild those relationships. So my biggest piece of advice is keep your eye on the prize, keep going, connect with the right leadership at whatever level of the organizational system they are, so that prize is still in mind, and be adaptive to your local context.
Thank you, John. Elsa, do you want to add anything to that?
I think you've summed it up really well, John. What I would add is just connect with each other. We've just had a conversation, John and I, about finding your QI leaders and people with QI experience across your patch. So we're really fortunate in the Northwest. We've got a number of IHI fellows, Gen Q fellows, lots of community, so Q community members, which is fantastic. And actually, if you can connect together, you build the sort of group of you to really go on the journey together. It's not easy work. And if you try and do this on your own, I think it just becomes, you hit one barrier after another. Whereas if you've got that connectivity, and as John says, you've got that shared vision about what you want to deliver, one of you will be able to overcome the barriers. So connect to each other, and then connect into your senior leadership team.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much. So we do have a question now appearing in the chat, everyone. I do encourage you all just to get your voices in there. So this question from Tom Rollinson. I don't know if you want to put your own camera on there, Tom. I don't know if you're set up to do that, but you've got a question, haven't you, about, I'm just seeing that in the chat, about keeping on the CI journey despite everything that's going on. Are you there, Tom? Not quite sure? Okay, do you want to have a reflection on that, Elsa and John first? And then I'm curious if Penny and Rob might want to come in about what that's like on the other side as well, when the waves are all moving. So Elsa, do you want to go first, and then John this time? Should we do that way around?
Yeah, happy to. So I think we were fortunate, especially at the start of COVID, when our senior leaders, our chief executives, absolutely turned to improvement, I think, to really help us navigate our way through. So I know lots of places improvement teams were asked to go and support other things, and they ended up maybe not doing improvement. We did support our organisations in core elements, but we didn't step down our improvement work. So I think that's about making sure that you find your CI voice and make sure that continuous improvement is embedded in everything you do. So even if you are doing something that's different, bring the continuous improvement approach to it. And I think if we can do that, we are lucky across our patch, because we have three of us connected into our board. We do have that opportunity to have the conversations on a weekly basis with our exec team and within our boards. So my other advice would be really have the board development conversation with your executive leaders. Make sure on the back of the launch of NHS Impact, your board is really committed to board development.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Elsa. Go on, John.
The only thing I would add to that is don't underestimate how you can influence others at a more senior level. So have all our executives for their executive life all said that improvement is the approach we're going to take during these choppy times? No, they haven't. But they are now in a position where they truly believe, because of what they've seen in terms of small results in some places and then increasing results that it builds, that this is the way to manage. So everybody can influence at much higher levels in the organisation. And some of that leadership development doesn't come from external parties coming in. It comes from within the organisation, feeding back to the leaders so that they grow and they come to a place where they're saying this is our approach to managing health and healthcare in the local population.
Yeah, lovely. So I'm going to come over to Penny and Rob. So I'm just wondering about your perspectives on it. Sometimes watching the waves and sometimes creating the waves. So go on, Penny first, and then to Rob.
I mean, I think Elsa and John put it beautifully. Just to build on their points, I think we saw it through COVID, actually, and from the key community, they told us that a lot of people were redeployed elsewhere, depending on the organisational environment they're in and their kind of pre-existing confidence with improvement. Some people just kind of stopped using those improvement muscles, as we put it, and some people found that they were using actually their improvement ideas and skills, even if they weren't using that language, even if it wasn't in the space that they prompted. And so I guess I've learned just to kind of recognise when you are using those skills and ideas, maybe not with the full rigour that you would have liked or in exactly the right conditions, but recognise and value that in yourself and name it to others, because actually You know, that's the common thread, even if there's all sorts of disruption that happens. And then the other reflection is that, you know, I guess my career has led me to alternating between kind of local, regional and national roles, more or less. And I used to think that like people maybe had the solution at the top or they had the solution at the front line. And, you know, I've increasingly realized that there are, you know, different insights and different frustrations at those different levels. So whenever I'm getting completely frustrated with like barriers at a certain level, go and get a bit of injection of energy or a different perspective by going and speaking to or connecting with somebody at a different level in the system. And use Q to, if you're not confident in having, you know, if you're a very senior leader and you're not confident having easy connections to people in the front line or in a different sector, you know, like Q can help make those kind of neutral connections to people you wouldn't normally have a conversation with.
Lovely. And then we're going to come to Rob, and then we're going to have one more question for Rob at the end about language, I think, and then back to Emma because we're running out of time, everybody. Go on, Rob.
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it brief. Just to say, completely agree with what everybody else has said. I think COVID gave that opportunity around flexibility, and for people where there was an opportunity to continue to use the improvement muscle, demonstrating the value add, and that, you know, when a rigorous improvement approach is taken, good things happen. And I think just a personal reflection from me, I've been involved in quite a few discussions where you know, so words have been said like, oh, the business doesn't understand improvement, and my challenge has always been back, how do you demonstrate that improvement's understanding the business? And I think whenever we take the opportunity to demonstrate that improvement does understand the business and it's relevant to the priorities of the business, again, good things happen.
Lovely, Rob. Okay, one more question. I'm just going to pick it up with you, Rob, because it's you mentioned language at the beginning, and a few questions have just appeared in the chat. So Thomas Rose asks about process management. You know, where does that fit in here? Nicola asks about, oh, there's a shift here between organisational language into system language, and also possibly suggest something about pathways versus population health, and you know, is that deliberate, is that intentional, some of those shifts? And Lizzie 12 is also talking about the difference between continuous improvement, which I really like from Elsa. You know, you've got to improve every day, keep learning every day, versus quality improvement, the kind of the historic, more project PMO approach that's been taken. So I'm wondering if you just wanted to make any immediate reflections on language.
Yeah, I'll have a go. I mean, it's a bit of a minefield, isn't it? What we call things, how we refer to things, and using the right terminology. I think the organisation system bit is quite interesting. Obviously, we're in an environment now where we have ICBs, and we continue to have strong leadership at trust level as well. Certainly, the stuff I've been talking about for NHS Impact is not key to a particular audience. It's relevant to both organisation and system, and we need to make sure we do a good job of explaining that throughout the implementation. Pathways versus population health. I know that certainly at a national level, both those things remain relevant. Certainly within the directorate where I sit, transformation, there's a lot more effort going into pathway transformation as the new structures and new NHS England operating model persists, and also population health, as we saw in the Hewitt review, remains relevant and needs to be alongside that rather than one or the other. I would say, sorry, I can't really speak to the question on process improvement, but I'm happy to take that one away. And continuous improvement versus quality improvement, absolutely need to keep doing both. And what if you were to wave a magic wand and fast forward a year or two, hopefully the impact of impact will be making sure both of those things are embedded and part of the way we do things, rather than being seen as an additional tertiary activity. Hope that helps.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Rob. I know that in lots of things that I've ever done before, language is always a really hot topic for debate across every level I've ever worked in, and I'm sure that's the same for everybody. So if people have thoughts about that, the chat's open, and so is Twitter. Go for it. It always raises different emotions for different people, so go get them out. Right, Emma, back to you. Thank you, panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I always hate having to finish the conversation because there's loads more that can be said. So as Joyce said, let's continue it on. So just to finish us off, just put this on screen again. So we're going to finish with a bit of a poll. I don't think it actually asked that question. It just asked about your learning. So don't click the red button to leave until you've answered the poll. But just to let you know that not only is there a quality management systems special interest group on Q, which you can join if you want, but there's also going to be an open space event hosted by the Complexity Approaches to Special Interest Group on the 16th of June. And really that's going to be an open space where come with those kind of questions, come with those kind of thoughts and share them, and let's take the conversation further. So that was just to remind you of that. So before I launch the poll and ask you to do that, let's just say a huge thank you to everyone. So our speakers particularly, huge thank you for sharing and being so honest and open with everything that you've shared with us. I assume if people want to get in touch, that's okay with you. Another thumbs up for that one. But also what we will do is we will post the recording and we will post the slides onto the QWeb website, and as a participant you'll get an email with a link to that as well. So that's really great. So just to finish off, to say thank you again to the speakers, but also to all the people that have come on the call. Please feel free to share anything you've got with others. So I'm going to launch the poll now. Please do that before we leave. Thank you very much. And goodbye. Thank you.